Welcome to Talk Advocacy to Me, the podcast that dives deep into the world of customer advocacy and loyalty. I'm your host, Liz Richardson, and I'm joined by my dynamic co-host, Jaana Linsenmayer. We're the co-founders of Captivate Collective, and we're here to spark your curiosity and fuel your passion for all things customer advocacy. Each episode, we tackle hot and pressing customer engagement topics for the advocurious to the seasoned pro. So let's dive in and talk advocacy. Hello, everyone. We're so excited for another episode of Talk Advocacy to Me. The one question we're going to be answering today is a really good one, and I think a really unique one as well, because it has its own unique problems, its own unique issues, which is how do you sell the value of advocacy internally at a large enterprise company, which is very different than trying to sell anything internally at a SMB or mid-market company. Today's co-host, I have with me Bianca del Vecchio from Captivate. Say hello, Bianca. Yes, and then our special guest, which I'm just so thrilled about because we do talk about you, Jaana, internally. There's just some people that we just absolutely love, and Jaana is one of those people. Today we have Jaana Linsenmayer, and she is with us very specially today. She is so experienced. There's so much here that we could dig into, but over 20 years of experience in corporate world, most of them at large organizations like AT&T, Microsoft, and SAP. So we're talking like the big guys. So she'll be able to unwrap this for us quite well. Currently, Jaana, you are spearheading a massive project at SAP, which is this holistic, modern advocacy program, and you're rallying tens of thousands of customers to share their stories, but you're also rallying dozens, maybe more people internally to get on board with this approach to customer engagement and advocacy. And you're also a college instructor, which I really love. And I know that you are passionate about that too. So Jaana, say hello to everyone today on Talk Advocacy to Me.
Oh, well, yes. Hello. And thank you for having me on. I always enjoy catching up with you both. And I'm excited about our conversation today.
100%. I want to dig in just a little bit. You said off the clock that you enjoy island life because you live in Seattle and it's a ferry ride away. Like, what does that mean, island life to you?
Island life to me. Well, it's funny. So anyone who's seen Grey's Anatomy has seen the ferry leaving Seattle. That is the ferry I take to get to the island I live on, Bainbridge Island. And as you start to leave the city, which by the way, I love the city, but as I approach the island, it's very lush, it's very green. I can feel my shoulders just kind of like relax, and I can just feel like just this sense of like calm and peacefulness. And it's a very there's lots of woods and trees and forests here, and but yet if you can get to the waterline, you can see the city of Seattle. So it's a different, very much a different vibe than being in the city, and that's what I've enjoying.
I love it. And I have lots of memories of being a young 20-something-year-old and watching Grey's Anatomy with my friend and like bawling, like literally bawling. Bianca, you're nodding, so I'm guessing you watch Grey's Anatomy too.
I have so many memories of watching Grey's Anatomy, like even in like university, getting everyone together on like the resident floor to like watch the new episode, like way back. So
did anyone like reconsider wishing that you would have become a surgeon? Because I do. Several times I'm like, maybe I could have been a surgeon.
No, my brother's a surgeon, and he's like, those shows are also fake. So,
okay.
All right, we digress. We are actually here not to talk about pop culture, but to talk about advocacy, and specifically that idea of selling the value of advocacy. And I love the way that that's phrased. We typically say, getting buy-in. Okay, that's kind of vanilla, but I like that phrase of how do you sell the value of advocacy? And it's so different at the enterprise because there's so many stakeholders and there's so many different lines of connection, dotted lines across the organization. All right, so I'm going to open us up into this conversation. And again, we have such an expert here, you having been at so many organizations, Jaana, that are just massive. So I think we all do agree. Everyone who is listening to this right now agrees that you have to have buy-in. Like that is a universally accepted in the world of customer marketing and advocacy. We do have to have buy-in. We even have to have collaboration from our peers throughout the organization. But what do you think is like truly unique about getting buy-in or alignment or collaboration at that enterprise organization like a Microsoft or like an SAP?
Yeah, man, it's a great question, and it's certainly, I would say, one of the biggest challenges in trying to roll out any large initiative at a large company. It's really, coming up with who you can't. We're not going to be successful in rolling it out across multiple organizations unless we have the support of those multiple organizations. And really, that's at the foundation, right? It doesn't matter how amazing your project is. If you pop out of the cake at the very end and say, surprise, we just created this thing and we want your organization to use it and to actually adopt it, it's going to be met with a tremendous amount of resistance, right? No matter how amazing it is. So it's really about, like, one, identifying who are all of the critical organizations that the program is touching, and then two is engaging them early, right? So a lot of it, and Bianca knows this because she worked with us on this, is that we have to start to build trust with the different stakeholders, and we build that trust by listening first. And it's very tempting. It's very tempting to run in and say, I have the best idea. I want to sell you on it. Right. But instead, it's really, connecting with these different organizations and the different leaderships, and starting with, hey, we have a challenge we're trying to solve, but I want to hear, what's important to your organization. And usually there's always a common thread. Usually we can always find a common thread, and then we can, focus on that common thread and say, you want to solve that. We want to solve it too. And we believe we have a path that might do that, but we need to work. We want you to join us on this journey. And so getting in early and building that trust and listening, I think, are critical.
Jaana, all I have right now is like this image of you popping out of a cake. Sign that says, surprise, I built this. I mean, it definitely would be attention getting. And I think, like, we wholeheartedly agree, Bianca, you've worked with a lot of our bigger enterprise customers. And I do think it's important, obviously, in any project to listen. I mean, listen to your customers, listen to your stakeholders. We are big fans of that. But with the enterprise, we are seeing, like, there's a lot, I think, like a longer tail of that at the front end. Is that what you're seeing too, Bianca?
Yeah, absolutely. And just being able to do that internal research, because that audience is so important. Like, we always talk about getting to know your customer audience, but really understanding the complexities and the nuances of all of the different organizations within a large enterprise. We did this work with you, Jaana, just doing those internal interviews and having those conversations before starting to make any decisions, so that we really had the full picture. And I love how you put it, just finding those things that you both agree that you want to work on together, and then using that as your stepping point.
What is so crazy is, like, sometimes in an organization, customer marketing, customer advocacy is not necessarily any bigger than it, like the core people running that. It's not necessarily more headcount than you might even see at a mid-market, but the legwork that has to be done in order to do all those interviews, in order to talk to all those people, it's a massive investment of time. And so, Jaana, I think when we, throughout all the work we've done with you, I mean, you're always setting expectations, aren't you, about, like, the timeline of working at an enterprise.
Yes.
Oh man. Okay. So let's dive into kind of like this case study. Let's unpack what you're doing at SAP. So give us the lay of the land of the SAP reference program as it existed, and then, like, what your goal was, what yours, and I know your group's goal was to accomplish.
Yeah. SAP has been around for quite some time, and so we had a really great program that was developed about 20 plus years ago, really focused on references, right? Which references are critical to our business. But as you can imagine, in the last 20, 30 years, there's been a lot of new advances in technology as well as customer behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were starting to find that the old program was not only difficult to manage from an operational perspective, but also just not really meeting the needs of our customers. And that was the most important piece. And so we wanted to take a step back and look at, what else is out there. And, we hear the term advocacy a lot, and I don't, I think it's used in many different ways. Like what would advocacy look like for us? How are other companies doing it? And what are best practices out there? And so that's obviously when we met Captivate, because we were looking for, what's best of breed out there. And so that was really like our first shift into going from a manual reference program to a scalable digital advocacy program that references would still be supported within. So that was our original thinking and our original approach.
So when you were thinking about, okay, I want to make some kind of significant change to this program, and you start thinking about your internal stakeholder map, what does that look like at an enterprise the size of SAP?
Yeah, I liken it to, so for all of us who are marketers out there, which I know there's quite a few, I liken it to like when you think about the buying committee when you're trying to sell to a business. If you're in a business to business marketing model, you're selling to a buying committee. Very similar when you're trying to do internal selling. You identify who your buying committee is, like who are all of the people that are going to have a role, either because they're an influencer, they're a decision maker, or maybe they're a user, right? They're going to be an end user of whatever the program is. And so really mapping out this buying committee. And then we were fortunate. We had, executive sponsorship all the way up and within our organization, but then we used that to help connect with other leaders within those organizations. And we started with them. We started actually at the top, and we brought them together and we said, we're putting together a steering committee. Here's what we're trying to solve. There was no question that we all wanted to innovate, and there was no question that we wanted to provide a better customer experience. And so bringing everyone together early, really hammering out what's important to all of them. And of course, you always have conflicting opinions and you work through them. And then using that as a bit of a framework was the starting place. And then we also pulled in customer feedback. And this is, where a lot of our great work with Bianca, customer feedback, other internal feedback, and slowly started to kind of build out this framework that we believed everyone could support. And then continuing those meetings, right? As we started to make advancements in our strategy, go back to that advisory committee, go back to that buying team and say, this is where we're at. What do you think? And continue to get buy-in, just to make sure they're on the journey with us.
Yeah,
go ahead, Liz.
Well, I was going to ask you anyway, Bianca, the nugget that Jaana pulled out there, or she mentioned that customer research, which really actually plays into the internal buy-in as well. So so dig into that just a little, Bianca, how we use customer research to build that internal buy-in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The internal research. And when you have the context of what customers are saying, and then you can match that back up to some of the pain points that your internal stakeholders have, that's really where things start to light up, where you say, okay, there's a real need here because we're hearing it from our customers and we're hearing it from our internal partners as well. And then taking all of that feedback, because, it is an ongoing process. We've gone back to those customers, from the initial conversations that we've had, to take them along on the journey and get that feedback and, do a pulse check to say, here's what we heard, here's what we've been working on, how does this sound, and like, how are you feeling about the direction things are going? And that's been work that's continued throughout this process. And I know, Jaana, you've been having conversations this entire time to start building that foundation and to start building that trust. It can't just be a conversation that happens afterward and you're just saying, all right, here's what we're doing, everyone. How does that sound? You've really got to bring people along on the journey, build their feedback into that journey so they feel like they've been part of it, and they have been a part of it, and they've, been able to contribute to the decision and see how that all comes to life.
I'm curious, like so beyond customer feedback, which was a big part of what you brought forward to that internal steering committee, what other assets, what other proof points, what else did you need to bring forward to get that initial excitement around the project?
Yeah, external research was probably another big piece, because that's it's scary to drive a big initiative when you don't know if it's considered a best practice. And so we did work with Captivate to find some external research as far as like what are standards in the B2B space, what are companies doing. We also looked to some of our just buying research that we already had been looking at from the marketing side. We know that millennials are now in, I think it's something around 70%, 75% of business decision makers are millennials. And we know that as these earlier generations start to work up in the and have more active roles in purchasing, they like to do things more online, right? So they're more digitally native, digitally savvy, and a lot of millennials grew up on video games. And so gamification is well received. And so also looking at that kind of data, saying, that our customers are changing, the demographics of our customers are changing, and how do we make sure we're getting ahead of it versus, missing the boat and being the last company to realize it.
Well, that's an interesting point, just knowing your program. I know that your reference program initially, or how it stands today, or did stand, was the benefit was focused on the account level, right?
Yeah.
And then if we even just think of people in general, it's like we've become more and more and more individualistic. Like we really do want to know, less maybe loyalty to the brands we work for, and a little bit more, what am I going to get out of it from a personal and professional perspective? So you're right, like there's the trends, there's what are other people doing in this space, and there's obviously what do our customers need and what do we need, and how can we marry those? Yeah. Okay, so just a real practical question for people listening. This was a large program. It was structured regionally. So you had how many regional leads for the program, Jaana?
Oh, I don't know about regional leads, but we had different programs for all the different countries, for about 27 different countries. So
okay, 27 countries. So you have that, and then you talked about but going up as well. What's the formula that you took? So how much did you need to tell people who are actually working in and managing the program at the beginning versus how much you needed to just go talk to people who were at the corporate level and had the ability to write the budget, give the brief, et cetera. What was the balance that you struck there?
Well, I'm not going to say this was mission accomplished because we are still very much in the thick of it, right? But it is an interesting balance, centralization and standardization, but also giving countries and regions autonomy to meet their own specific needs. And so that was one of our biggest concerns. And is how do we make sure that the countries and the regions are able to operate uniquely, because they're all different, but yet we wanted to standardize. We didn't want to run so many fragmented programs. So a lot of it came from our technology, looking at the technology and thinking about what kind of technology would allow us to come up with like a standardization so we could run it centrally, but also give local and regional customization and flavor. And so that's kind of where the local buy-in comes in. So as they might want something unique, we are able to offer up some unique experiences within the technology while still establishing some general guidelines that are rolled out globally.
And I think even as you roll out that program, there's a lot of just education, even for the stakeholders, right? Like, so there's education above of just like the big high level, what are we trying to accomplish? And then there's the education of everyone who might touch in some way that program. Bianca, I think you guys are helping with that to some degree. Want to explain a little bit? Because I mean, it's a lot, it's a good amount of education that has to go out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jaana, feel free to jump in. But the approach has really been to build in these ongoing enablement sessions, especially with the regional ambassadors who will play a really important role in getting the program up and running and launched in their region. So we've been building out those agendas, meeting with the team, answering questions, really just having an open channel so that if anybody does have questions in between meetings, but really focusing on layering that education piece in by starting with like the big why, like what are we doing and why, how did it come about, bringing in some of that customer research, and then spending time really doing some of that demoing and training to help people feel confident in the tool and like they can take ownership of the role that they have.
Jaana, what's the plan? Like, so yes, everyone gets trained up, everyone gets a look. Hopefully they get support that they need, but ongoing from a more of a global perspective, what's the ongoing education buy-in? Like, we're all using this and we're all getting the best practices and whatnot. What is your plan for that?
Yeah. So, like Bianca mentioned, we did identify regional ambassadors, and essentially those are the people who can be, more connected with the local activity, and they can help surface any sort of confusion, process issues, maybe technical issues, whatever that is. And so we're collaborating with them as well as doing enablement from the broader org. It's interesting in a situation like this, we don't know what we don't know yet. I mean, we don't know, obviously, what all of the little pitfalls and process issues we're going to pop into. So we're trying to approach it slowly. We're starting with a pilot. We're starting with our closest customers who are wanting to be part of the process, the messy beginning process, right? And we have feedback channels in place so that we can constantly take the feedback and look at how are we improving our technology, improving our processes, improving our communications, improving our enablement. And so we have a standing call for the first few weeks of the pilot to be constantly monitoring that and looking at how we can improve it. But, it's also just a lot of asking everyone to be patient. Right? Because this is new. This is new, and we know that it's going to have some wrinkles to begin with, and we're just going to have to iron them out and then continue to refine and turn this into an amazing operational program.
That's part of the goal of the initial legwork, right? You're building that rapport. You're saying, hey, we're doing our best to bring you along for this ride. We're doing our best to make sure that what the changes we're making, the programs we're building are meeting your needs, so that, right, they're on your team. They know that you're working for the good of everyone involved. And then if there are hiccups, which there are bound to be hiccups at an organization this large and an implementation this large, that they are still on your side. They're still rooting for you. It's not an immediate, like, I told them not to do this, or if they had asked me, I never would have made this choice, right? Like, so you are actually building advocates internally. And I've always said, right, your job in customer advocacy, if you're a professional in this role, it's very hard. You're building advocates from your customer base and you're building advocates internally. And you have to find the value for both of those people. And you have to become like someone that they want to champion as well, because they see and have built that relationship with you. And that can be hard at a large organization, because we are talking about so many internal stakeholders, and they may not all get a chance to sit down with you, Jaana, specifically, and like just get that that chance to, oh, I just love Jaana because she's an amazing person, right? And you have to kind of use all those communication channels and all those other leaders and get them
We
to
have to
build that
scale.
buy-in.
Yeah.
Yes, the
Yeah.
buy-in. Yeah.
I also think it's a bit of a, so at Microsoft, and I think it might have been Satya Nadella that said this, that we wanted to be the learn it all culture, not the know it all culture. And I think about that often because that we were approaching this process really through the lens of we want to learn, right? We know that just like anything, you're not going to get it perfect right out the gate, but we are going to learn and we are going to improve and iterate, and we'll never stop learning. This is going to be a continuous journey, and we will always continue to improve this process. And so as long as we approach it with that mindset, I think we'll be successful because we'll just continue to support the growth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always like, we could always say a million things, and I'm already probably way over time. So I'm going to have to get to some good advice from Jaana. Advice from Jaana. You're about a year and a half into this project, I think, because that's how long that all that pre-work takes, and then getting the everything in place. What's been your biggest challenge, do you think, so far when it comes to getting that internal buy-in?
Yes, it's getting the time, right? Especially with some of
Mhm.
these very senior leaders, getting the time, and then also operating quick enough before reorgs happen. And I think anyone who's part of a big company knows that reorgs are part of just the nature of large enterprise, right? They have to continue to evolve to stay competitive and relevant. And so you might have your stakeholders on board, and then those stakeholders change overnight, and so then you have to go back through and re-engage them, and then they might have a different perspective than the ones previously. So I think it's just being flexible, right, and understanding that it is a continual evolution. That's probably been one of the bigger challenges, but we're trying to move quickly so that we can operate as much as possible, given the existing set of stakeholders before any sort of major changes happen.
And I know we did some good back and forth work with you, Jaana, and you helped us improve this. But Bianca, we have started creating more like executive summaries for our customers once they have that advocacy program plan in place. And I think you could see, like, especially in a larger organization, the need to keep telling that story over and over of why we're doing this. Are you seeing that too, Bianca, with like just generally in our enterprise customers?
Yeah, it's really helpful to be able to have that talk track because there's so much that goes into it, right? Like you do all of the customer research, you have all of your strategy, and to be able to really boil that down into, a few slides that you can pull into conversations. And Jaana, I know you've had many, many conversations with people all across SAP, and being able to just package that story up with the why and a few supporting points that really is representative of months and months of work and countless conversations. But it's such an important tool to be able to have that because it really helps position you to be successful in those conversations, because it's just very much for an executive audience. We know executives are busy, so if we can really help package that up, it's always helpful. Jaana, I know you've got a really great talk track for the program that's launching now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm assuming. And then Jan, I think you have slight changes, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong, like depending on the audience you're talking to, you might have, right? You figure out what's important to them, and you might have a slightly different talk track.
Exactly. Yeah. And that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, which is just aligning to whatever that organization's goals are. Right. And so maybe an org might be focused on driving adoption and consumption, whereas another org might be really focused on new deal support.
Yeah.
Yeah, and having like an FAQ also for each of those audiences, so that people can go and do a little bit of a deeper dive into specifically, their questions or their concerns or their needs, is also really helpful too when you're just working with so many people that might have different perspectives. Yeah.
It's so important. It's very helpful for them, but like it also is scaling Jaana. I mean, because it's just
Mhm.
one person maybe who's kind of the spearhead of the project. And obviously, again, there's so many people who are going to be curious and want to have answers. So to readily have some of those assets available, I'm sure is helping you just save your sanity to some degree and not have to say the same thing over and over with your own words.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I gotta say, one of the little tricks or hacks that we figured out is as we would attend some of these regional and team calls, we would use like Copilot for us, but I know there's a lot of other AI note-taking tools, and they would automatically aggregate all of the Q&A from all these meetings, and then we had Captivate jump in and help and like take all of those meeting Q&As and aggregate them, so we were able to actually create that relatively quickly right after having these meetings.
That's
Yeah, I
an
love the
awesome
AI
hack.
tip. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, well, that was a great tip, but I'm going to ask one final question from you, Yana. Beyond really cool AI tips, which everyone is probably discovering right now, what have you learned from this project specifically when it comes to getting internal alignment? And I mean, you've done this, like you've done projects at large organizations before. Was there anything specific to this project that you feel like, okay, that was something I learned?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot about how things work internally, but I'm pretty sure that doesn't really help your audience who don't all work for the same company I do. No, I mean, I think, I just be brutally honest. I think patience, right?
Mm,
For me, if I had to go back and give myself advice 18 months ago, it would have been just be patient,
mm,
because it does get really frustrating when you're pretty clear or you feel like, oh man, we're making momentum. And then all of a sudden it just feels like a barrier comes down, whatever that barrier might be. Maybe it's a technical issue, another organization that wants to do something different or whatever. It was really just, it will work out, right? You just keep moving forward and you just keep doing the work and putting one step in front of the other. And, it we're here, we're piloting
yeah.
next week, and honestly, if you would have asked me a year ago, Bianca, I would have been like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing
Yeah.
to just knowing all of the work that's had to happen to get to this point. It's really exciting to be at the pilot
Mhm,
phase, and
mhm.
I think patience is a very important thing to keep in mind, Yana.
Yeah.
It's so helpful, just that experience and knowing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, if you're
Yeah,
patient.
even if you can't see it.
Yeah,
Even if you
yeah,
can't
see
see
it,
it.
it's
Well,
there.
and maybe the tip here for people who are looking to move into, maybe you haven't been in a big org and you are
Mhm.
you're looking to make
Oh,
that
yeah.
change. It is drastically different than a startup. Um, Likewise, if you're coming from a big org and you're going to a startup, you're going to hit things that you're like, whoa, I have to do what? This is not
Yeah.
part of my job. No, everything's your job. But at an enterprise, if you're coming and you haven't been in that space before, hearing that, which is you have to have patience, but also you have to, I think, have some tenacity. Like
Yes.
if you're
Mhm.
easily discouraged, this may not be the right environment for you because you have to be able to say, okay, obstacle, how do we get around it? And maybe even find some joy in figuring out how to get around those obstacles because there is just so much to overcome in a large organization. That is just the way it is. There's a lot of tape, there's a lot of voices, there's a lot of stakeholders, there's a lot of people you have to convince, and you have to be a bit tenacious, I think, in order
Mhm.
to get a project like this done. Yana, you're saying like when you started, you didn't even, there was even some like, oh, I hope we make it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but here you are.
Tenacity is so big. I'm actually glad you said that because yeah, there's several points where I think at any point we could have said, you know what, this is just too
Hmm.
difficult to roll out, right? That easily could have been the conclusion, but
Yeah.
tenacity is absolutely essential.
Yeah. I mean, and that's how you make you put your stamp on the page of like, hey, we're doing this as an organization, especially a large organization. Hey, we're leading, and it takes a lot of rigor at a large organization to be, I think, to lead. I honestly do think that because it's harder to move in the bigger organizations. It's harder to experiment. It's harder to innovate. And so if you're at a large organization and you're wanting to innovate, if you're wanting to do something unique, you really have to know that you're up against a lot of work and a lot of tenacity and a lot of being the one to drive it and believe in it. So congratulations, Jaana. You're just an amazing person, but you're an amazing professional. And here you are, and you have made something happen at SAP, which just seemed so big and so like, is it ever going to happen? So congratulations to you. And I know to Kevin, who is also working with you on this and spearheading it. You're just such a joy. And I think this will be really helpful for those people who are thinking about making that change, and then how to build those internal pieces. So steering committees, assets that boil it down at the executive level, ongoing scaled training and engagement for the people working on the program, leveraging tools like AI to make sure that you move as quickly as you can, and then just not getting discouraged, like finding joy in the exercise and the challenge of getting around all that red tape.
Yeah, celebrate all the little milestones. Yes. There are many milestones, and you've got to keep excited about the outcome.
Absolutely. And I have to thank Captivate too. There were several in my darkest moments. I had the Captivate team saying, "This will work. This will work. Other companies do this."
So find a cheerleader. Find a cheerleader.
I couldn't have done it without their support. With your support.
You're so sweet, Jaana. Thank you. And thank you for coming on here and being a part of it. I hope we get you back on here sometime, not too long in the future. But thank you for sharing your wisdom, Jaana.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's been fun.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Bye.